Happy Friday. We've got less than 20 minutes left until the close. We've got the triple witching in play today. What are you watching leading up to the close?
Really the last 10 minutes of trading. I mean, that's where all the volatility takes place. That's where all the volume takes place. This is where the gamblers really come out of the woodwork. They're snapping up those calls for 2 cents on Nvidia, paying $1 or $2 like they're back at the Kentucky Derby for one final score. So the reality is we got $5 trillion worth of option contracts all expiring at once. I mean, no big deal right there. But the reality is that the VIX has really failed to provide any kind of meaningful scare since April, and more money's probably been lost preparing for some kind of correction than the correction itself. I mean, it's what Peter Lynch once said. So personally, I hope we see a meaningful correction here in the next week leading up to July, where the NASDAQ has finished higher the last 15 straight Julys. So 15 out of 15 years. Not a recommendation here, but that is a seasonal tendency that we've seen in the past. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future, but we're definitely anxious to see how it plays out.
And then what levels matter the most going into the close? Or is this also all about the options tied to NVIDIA?
Oh, well, NVIDIA's been trapped between 126 and 127 here for about the past hour and a half. Some of the other those YOLO stocks, the high flyers here, GameStop, AMC, they've all been selling off. Super Microcomputer kind of holding steady, and the NASDAQ is holding right at about that 20,000 level. So we want to see really any kind of big move in one direction or the other. We've been hanging on here for about the last hour or two. I think the S&P 500 is really holding on to that 5530 on the September contract as well.
Okay. And then you talked about the VIX earlier. What level are you paying attention to as we get closer to the finish line? I'm hearing more activity starting to happen right now around me.
Yeah, watching the July contract, it's that 14 handle. We haven't had any kind of meaningful impact or breakout since then. Yesterday, it looked like we were trying to make a move here. Today, really a big breakdown. That vol is compressing as we come into the close. So hopefully it releases and we see some kind of gamma squeeze back to the upside here with the last 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so you think that squeeze is going to happen in the last 5 to 10 minutes? It's all about the market on close orders?
110%. It's all about people repositioning, reallocating those funds towards those next options. People are looking at their accounts going, hey, these options are going about $5 trillion worth of options here, expiring worthless, are going all off at once. That money's got to be redeployed here, and it naturally is going to start to take a look farther out here in the game. I mean, we've had an incredible run up in all these equity indices. The one that looks most favorable to the downside, of course, the Russell 2000 small caps. They just can't hang on with these interest levels here, and also the rising inflation costs.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've been watching that move with small caps all session long. Let's talk a little bit about another asset that can sometimes be pretty volatile over in the crypto space. Bitcoin's been pretty range bound since hitting that all-time high back in mid-March. What are you looking for as a potential catalyst for a breakout in Bitcoin?
Yeah, we saw Micro Sailor. He came in with another large position here, so we watch a micro strategy. I mean, Bitcoin futures got to get it back above 72,000. That's kind of the line in the sand. We break out above that, you're going to start hearing that chatter for 75,000. And the reality is we're only halfway through the year. We've had a great run up in Bitcoin so far. I think that we take out 75,000, that $100,000 level by year end becomes a viable price target. We like to see Ethereum also get a bid below that and start to push up back through that 4,000 level. I mean, the cryptocurrency that are there, they're just kind of being shelved at the moment. So people are paying attention towards a lot of other asset class at the moment. You've had a lot of M&A activity as there was talk about, interest rates possibly coming down. The PMI data that came out today wasn't very helpful, but next week we got a whole lot of things coming out. The weak retail sales could equate to weak GDP, could also bring forward those expectations for that interest rate cut. And finally, next Friday, we've got that core PCE data, which is the Fed preferred inflation gauge.
Okay, that was well-rounded. You went around the horn. I was going to say if there's any final thoughts, but you took us into next week, Phil. Great insight, whether we're talking about the triple witching and the volatility that seems to be starting to pick up right now, all the way over to Bitcoin. Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. Always great to hear from you, Phil. Have a good weekend.